Fanatical Elfz Show, part of the Elfz Network. We are a bunch of wild and crazy Cleveland Browns fans, bringing you all the latest in Browns news. Tune in now. Well, good evening. This is the Fanatical Elfz Show, episode number 3. I am your host, John Suchan. Welcome again to our Fanatical Elfz podcast, our network, and we are excited to be here again. And we got our team here tonight. Just looking forward to chatting with these guys this week. Been some activity going on with the Cleveland Browns, and so just quick introductions, and then we'll get started. So we've got Steve Gill down there in Tennessee, a diehard Cleveland Browns fan. He does lots of blogging, has his own blog, works for Cleveland Sports Talk. We've got BP from Pepper Pike up there in Cleveland, and he's part of our network. He's also part of the new Cavs affiliate, part of the Fans First Sports Network that we're all part of. And so welcome aboard, BP.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we're just excited that, we've got a week of we've had a lot of news kind of this week with the Cleveland Browns, particularly with this idea of the Browns stadium and what they're exactly going to do with that. The reports this week sounded like they're going to be doing sort of a rebuild, but how that exactly looks and how it affects what the Browns do over the next couple of seasons, or not this upcoming season, but in the future here shortly. Will that mean that the Browns will be moving out? Will they be playing somewhere else? It seems to be there's some speculation there. And I know Steve and both BP, we were talking about it before we came on the air and had some various opinions about that. So let me start with you, Steve. The news with the Browns this week. What's your take on the stadium? They're going to do this rebuild. What are your first thoughts on that?
Well, first thoughts are if they're going to do this development along the lakeshore and build this land bridge, that's the city's responsibility to build the land bridge, and that'll have to be done first, I would assume. I mean, I've seen renderings on Cleveland.com. Looks really nice and wide, green areas. There's holes so you look down on it, or maybe they're rabbit holes for Brown's Twitter to go down. I don't know. But I expect next week we'll have a news conference with the mayor and also the Browns, and they'll clean up all this speculation. Let's just put it that way. I know here in Nashville, the Titans are going to get a new stadium. Okay, it's got one more vote in the council Tuesday, and they're going to approve it. And
so they're going to build a new stadium.
New stadium in the same area as the old stadium, just across the parking lot. And what they're going to do, they're going to stagger the build. I mean, they could use Vanderbilt Stadium, but Vanderbilt Stadium is currently going under renovations right now. So, but building BP usually takes about 4 or 5 years, and
right. Well, we'll come back to that second part of that question too about movement here in just a second. BP, what are your initial thoughts about the Browns and this rebuild, and what do you think that's going to look like, and what are your first takes?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I go to a couple of 2 or 3 Browns games a year. I felt the stadium is completely underused. I actually don't think they need to renovate the stadium. It's literally used 8 times a year.
Yes. And
I feel the facility is fine, the way it is. I mean, they improve it every couple of years anyways. So I'm not all that in favor of this, to be honest. Now, there was talks here locally that, like a lot of people wanted a dome stadium, or, they wanted the Browns to be kind of like what Indianapolis has, where they have the combine in Indy, and the Indianapolis has hosted a Super Bowl, and Indianapolis has hosted like Final Fours for basketball. So I would be in favor of something like that, something drastic where it really improves Cleveland as a destination city.
Right.
But to me, I mean, whatever, the Haslam's are going to do what they're going to do, but to be honest with you, I'm not in favor really of this big time renovation of Brown Stadium, because it's literally used 8, now maybe 9 times a year with the new schedule, with the 17 game schedule.
Yeah, good. I think, too, like you were saying, the idea though that some people are presenting with this whole dome thing, and the Browns Cleveland being able to use that for a multitude of things, from football games, Super Bowls, potentially college NCAA basketball tournaments. I think that's where some of the speculation is. It'll be interesting to see how we go forward. Now, part of the update or the questions that are arising currently, because of the way this latest article or the way it was presented, was that with this rebuild, there would be a period of 2 or 3 seasons potentially that it would affect the Browns and potentially where they would be playing. Now, they also mentioned that like the Berea, where the Browns have their practice facility, would also be getting some upgrading and stuff. Now, Joel, our left guard, who's part of our Fanatical Elfz network, he talked a little bit about his podcast, What the Elf was, that earlier in the week, and he had some experience living in Illinois, Chicago back in the day when the Bears built their new stadium. So it'll be interesting to see, like, he was talking about how it was difficult because it was at the University of Illinois and there was a lot of travel there. So Steve, let's start with you, because you talked a little off air a bit about your thought that's not going to be the case. You want to elaborate?
I can't see him going to Columbus. I can't see it.
Well, I'm here, man. Steve, I'm here. I'm right here.
I know you're there, but that's too great of a distance to go. And they're not going to use smaller facilities.
Yeah.
Because that's money out of the NFL hands. And the NFL don't like to give up any cash. Let's just face it.
Uh-huh.
I mean, now I don't live in Cleveland. It's been a while since I've been up there. I know a lot of people would like to have the lakefront look a lot nicer. And whether it be a renovation or a new stadium, as long as the lakefront is improved, then I could see where that could help the city of Cleveland. Yeah. Now the dome thing, that's the Final Four and all that helps. Yeah, the hotels and all that stuff, but the hotel's corporate headquarters, are they in Cleveland?
No,
I mean
they're in Berea.
They're sending the money to the corporate headquarters of all those hotels. So technically, sure, you're going to get a lot more people in the bars, the restaurants. Cleveland's going to have to build a lot more hotels, especially if they're looking for a Super Bowl. They don't have the hotel.
Yeah, the rendition
right
of the
Super Bowl.
That rendition of the land bridge, it showed a few like taller, like I'm assuming hotels right next to the stadium. As you cross over, they talk about that being like right over 9th Street. A lot of us are familiar with 3rd Street and 9th Street coming down those roads. BP, what are your thoughts on this whole move and what you think it might look like?
I mean, if they do renovate Browns Stadium, if the Browns have to play their games somewhere else for, let's just say 2 or 3 years, similar to what the Bears did, they played in Champaign, Illinois.
Yeah.
I don't see a problem if they played in Columbus, at Ohio State Stadium. I mean, again, Ohio State plays on Saturdays. The Browns games are on Sundays. I'm sure they could, figure out the schedules where Ohio State would play on, certain weekends and the Browns would play on the other weekends.
Yeah.
Obviously, but we'll see what happens. To me, again, I think it's much ado about nothing. I don't think it's all that necessary, but, I mean, it is what it is, but the stadium's only been there since 1999, and like I said, it barely gets much use as it is. So, I think I'm not really in favor of this whole thing. But one thing I did want to mention is that, like in Indianapolis, they also play the Big Ten championship game in Indianapolis.
Yeah,
for football, and that's a huge thing, and they do that every year. So that's another thing they could do potentially at an indoor Browns stadium.
Oh, I like that idea. Sure.
Yeah, because I mean, we're a better town, in my opinion, than Indianapolis, with more hotels, more restaurants. So and a lot of the Big Ten now is on the east. You got Rutgers is in the Big Ten, Penn State's in the Big Ten. Now you got like the California teams coming into the Big Ten, UCLA and USC. So the Big Ten championship game is going to be a big deal going forward,
right,
down the road. So we'll see what happens, but.
Yeah. Well, let's switch gears here just a brief moment, and then we're going to go follow our script. Any other news this week, either from either one of you that you've been? I know, Steve, you've been doing your mocks and whatnot, and then BP, if there's anything like any players that you're seeing. I know there's been a lot of visits from these players, and a lot of people are analyzing
wide
right
receivers. The kid from Princeton, and then Grant DeBose from Charlotte, and then the new toy of the draft, Jake Witt out of Northern Michigan.
Okay.
Offensive tackle, 6'7", 300 pounds.
Oh wow.
Dane Bold, draft analysts have him going like 6th or 7th. He was in for a visit.
Okay, so the kid,
big guy, long arms. He's a developmental tackle, but an
offensive tackle. Yeah, Northern Michigan.
Northern Michigan. Jake Witt.
Last night, our colleague Rod and his brother Jeff, they had their interview on their Browns Blitz podcast. If you haven't listened to that on the Fanatical Elfz Network, please listen to that. It's an excellent interview. They had Eric. I should know his name. Anyway, he works for CBS Sports and with drafts, and he's analyzed things, and he has 1,000-page program that he puts out of 1,000 players. And it's just very, very intense. But in his conversation with Rod, he talked a lot about a lot of these mid-range players. I guess that would be my other question with you guys. And then, Brad, I know you wanted to say something before I'll come back to that question. What did you want to talk about there too, BP, about the latest?
Well, just since my background is the Browns Stadium, since we were talking about stadiums, they just had a report on today on ESPN that the grass stadiums are like 100 times safer for the players than these artificial turf stadiums. And then, that was announced during Get Up on ESPN at around 9 or 10 a.m. this morning. And so, a lot of the guys like Stephen A. Smith were saying, the NFL with all their billions of dollars should really, invest, like get rid of all the artificial turf. Like I think Cincinnati has artificial turf. I think the Steelers have artificial turf. All the indoor stadiums have artificial turf. And I think that's a huge thing. Like I know the Jets and the Giants, their stadium is artificial turf, and that's been proven to be a very dangerous stadium with a ton of injuries in that MetLife Stadium.
Yes.
So I did want to mention that since we were talking about stadiums. But it is important, and I just want to know what you guys think of that with the turf, and also, it's an interesting sort of thing. And they all had a thing on Tua. Tua was a hair away from retiring last season, the quarterback for the Dolphins. And he had 2 or 3 concussions during the season. He missed 5 games out of 18 games. So that's another thing where
I'm all for the grass stadiums. As a Clevelander and watching the Browns these games, people talk about what they like and don't like about being a Browns fan, but that grit is, we play on real grass or something like it. And we play
or green painted dirt,
in a cold city in the winter. Yeah, and that's the thing. I was going back and watching some old tape. I know before we came, I actually had some hockey on, but we turned the hockey game off. We didn't want you to be distracted if you're watching us on YouTube. So, but I was watching earlier than there was the old game from E9 when the Browns played the Buffalo Bills in the AFC semifinals or whatever, and the Browns, they beat them. It was a very close game. Actually, I was there at the stadium. I think they went into overtime, or it was at the very end of the game. And I think Clay Matthews, the linebacker, got an interception.
A divisional round before the championship game. Yeah.
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
was the year before Buffalo got really good. And anyhow, they were showing the turf and the grass, and there was no, I mean, it was just, dirt in that old municipal stadium. And I don't know. What do you think about that, Steve, as far as the stadiums and the grass like BP's talking about?
Oh, I'm all for grass. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, players.
Especially on 420.
Well, I was just, you beat me to it, man. I was going to.
Thank you. I was going to say it.
Right. There's your joke.
Yes. We're having a little fun here on the Fanatical Elfz show.
Yes. Josh Gordon. I remember him well. But anyway, playing on grass, careers would last longer. Less injuries.
Especially Josh Gordon playing on grass.
Oh, yeah.
Let me get back to the question at hand. What I get leading up to was that when Rod was interviewing the gentleman from CBS Sports yesterday, they were talking about the draft, and the Browns have 8 draft picks coming up. Now, One of his thoughts on CBS Sports guy, he mentioning that maybe the Browns will be packaging their picks, and instead of taking those 8 picks, let's say they just, like we talked last week on the show, they just take 3 guys because they have a pretty solid roster right now. I know we talked about it before, and their 50-man 3 roster. Do they package these bits or these players and just take 3 or maybe 4? What are your thoughts on that? Well, Steve, what about yours? We'll go with you first.
Well, right now their biggest needs are for players, veteran players, defensive end and safety. I mean, you can't roll out with the safety room right now. I mean, you got 2 good safety, Delpit and Thornhill. Yeah. But you're going to throw a rookie or a 2 or 3 year player on that third safety? No, thank you. I'd love to see him sign a veteran defensive end, and these veterans, their prices are going to start coming down after the draft. The market kind of falters. They can either wait till an injury in training camp, or they can take a deal. There are good veterans out there that you could pay $3-4 million. I mean, the Browns have 7.1 after they finally announced the Marquise Goodwin contract.
Okay.
And then they're going to get back 9.75 and 1.65 after June 1st for John Johnson and Clowney. Right. And their draft picks are probably only going to take about $930,000. So they can spend a little money. And there are good veterans still out there, but you just got to find the guys who are going to be who would sign to be a backup or a rotational.
So with that
pass rusher.
So BP, I mean, with that idea, like this, I'm
still of the thought that he's going to try and trade away picks to move around a little bit. He doesn't usually trade up, and pick up some extra draft picks for next year and the year after 24-20. They've got 7 picks next year
already. So,
so a second and a third, I believe. So. Yeah.
BP, are you looking for any trades or anything?
He might. His first year he traded for the fullback during draft week. So
well,
if he sees somebody that he wants and there's a deal to be made, then I could see him doing it.
BP, what do you think?
I mean, I definitely think the Browns aren't going to draft 8 guys. They certainly don't have room on their roster for 8 more players. So hopefully they get rid of some of these 6-round picks, package them up, and there's no room for 8 more players. Going back to the free agency, I really like Ronnie Harrison. I think they should try to bring him back.
You mentioned that before on another show we had. Right.
Yeah. I mean, he's like 25 years old. He's 6'3", 210. I mean, he's from Alabama. He's a pretty good player. Yeah. I would try to bring him back. I would take him over a rookie, safety. There is a guy from Alabama, Jordan. We covered him before. Jordan Battle, I believe his name is.
Jordan Battle.
Yeah, and I like him a lot. If the Browns want to draft him in the 3rd or 4th round. The Browns, John and I cover this. The Browns have picks number 74, 98, and 111. So, they pretty much have 3 of the top 100 picks because they could always move from 111 up to 100 or So, I still think they're going to get. I'll take 3 good players there, and then the rest I really don't care about. I don't care about the 5th round offensive guard or, you know what I mean? They're
Right.
Draft, wide receiver back there, maybe a running back in the 6th or 7th round.
Well, the funny thing to me is I think I heard yesterday one of the guys on NFL Network was taking. I've seen this a couple times this week. They're giving the Browns a running back at pick 74, and I'm like, oh no.
No.
What are these guys? I don't know. I don't know why they're coming up with it. I don't.
Well,
just
be honest.
talking points.
Well, to be honest, you, John, and I, we had this. I don't want a running back at all in this draft because they just drafted Jerome Ford from Cincinnati. They got to see what they have with him. They let Dearness Johnson go. I almost would have kept him. He was he had 146 yards against the Broncos a year ago. The kid's pretty good. He was making like $1 million a year, which is really nothing for a pro athlete.
Right.
So my opinion is, I think they should see what they have with this Jerome Ford. And I mean, I hate to say it, but Kareem Hunt's still out there too. I would like to see him bring him back. Maybe
that bridge is burned.
We'll see, because nobody's getting these guys are still sitting out there. Jerome, Ronnie Harrison and Kareem Hunt. Nobody's claimed them.
Let me move on to. We're going to do our little trivia question here. This is our Browns. Well, we're going to call it the Dawg Pound Trivia segment now. So this is our Dawg Pound segment, and the question actually was from our colleague Elliot, who posed this question. He said, "Who did Art Modell trade away that were future All-Pros?" There were 3 that Elliot brought up. So we'll bring that up here momentarily. I want you to think on that. We'll come back to it. And so we'll run into our next segment, our cardiac history segment. And basically, I had one of the guys that I've always liked a lot. And if you go back to the original days when the Browns had their draft back in '99 and such, Dayton, not Dayton. I hate not Dayton, Ohio. It's Dalen McCutcheon. He was drafted in the '99 draft. In the 3rd round.
Yep.
He was picked number 62. He played for 7 years just with the Browns. He was very consistent. Had 12 interceptions, 53 pass deflections, 7 fumbles, 431 tackles, 15 for losses, and 7 sacks. He was always, when I go back and I look at, those players and what they did, I mean, he was really a very good, talented D-back for the Browns back then. So my question to you guys was, was there a player that you've always kind of thought was one of your favorites? I know we talked about quarterbacks a couple shows ago. So who would be a favorite of yours? Let's start with you, BP. Well, who's one of your favorite players in the last, since they've come back to town in '99?
I'll give you a couple, if I may. But the first one is, I always liked this Travis Benjamin. You remember he was a very thin wide receiver.
Yes.
And a kick returner. But this guy was electric. When he got the ball, I mean, he was on a punt return or, a kickoff. And, he was exciting to watch. He was really thin and quick.
Yeah.
And so now he was injured a lot because he was so thin and light. But he was exciting to watch. I always thought, he should have had a better career. After he left the Browns, he went over to the LA Chargers.
Okay. So
that's kind of, he's still sort of dangling around in the NFL, but, he was a fun player to watch, just, sort of a under the radar type of guy, Travis Benjamin.
Okay.
And, he was also similar to Dennis Northcutt, was also a similar type of player, a wide receiver, very thin. He was, again, he also underachieved, but he was fun to watch.
If only he didn't drop that 3rd down pass against the Squealers.
You had to bring that up, didn't you?
I'm sorry. It's like what I remember about that moment was that, I had friends and family watching that game, and they weren't avid Browns fans, and they're like, "Oh, the Browns are going to win," and I was like, "Don't say that because we know we're Browns fans." So I'm sorry, BP. Back to your
right. And I do want to give you one last guy. Now, my son and I work out here at the local Lifetime Fitness gym, and when my son was little, around 13 years old, we met Joe Hayden at the gym, and Joe Hayden loves basketball, and he was playing basketball with us full court, 5-on-5. Then my son, we took pictures with Joe Hayden. He was one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. So I've always rooted for Joe Hayden because he's a super nice guy. I thought the Browns did him wrong when they sort of cut him. when the Browns,
Right.
when they were in tank mode.
Right.
And the Steelers, of course, swooped them up very quickly.
Yes,
But
they did.
Very
I
good.
actually thought the Browns could have even brought Joe Hayden back last season. I thought they were flirting with the idea, but they didn't. But I thought he could have, probably helped out
Right.
the last couple of years here at cornerback.
Steve, who do you got?
Well, if you're going to talk since '99, you got to talk about the hammer. Phil Dawson
There you go.
scored their first rushing touchdown on a fake field goal. So, and then the first touchdown reception, which happened here in Nashville, it was game 2. Kevin Johnson,
Yeah.
wide receiver,
Yeah.
Timmy Couch's favorite target.
Yes.
Number 85.
Yeah, I remember the game buff. Everybody remembers the 2002 game where they came back, speaking of Dennis Northcutt, getting a great onside kick from Phil Dawson, caught it as he was going out of bounds, which led them to tie it, and then they went down and scored a field goal and beat the Titans. But the year before, the game after Bottlegate, Kevin Johnson caught the winning touchdown. They were down like 13 points with like 8 minutes left in the game, and they came roaring back. And
Who did they play in that one?
Titans again.
Oh, that was in 2001.
Yeah, I got to see 3 of the best comebacks here locally. Of course, the historic one back in 2014 where they, were trailing 28-10 at halftime and came back and won. Speaking of Travis Benjamin, who caught the winning touchdown. Caught 2 touchdowns late in the fourth quarter and the winning late in the game.
Why is it that some of these players like Travis Benjamin, and then we talk about somebody like Josh Cribbs, they're sometimes they're like special teamers. They're like that mixed bag. We really like that kind of player here in Cleveland.
Well, it goes back to, back to the Cardiac Kids. You had Dino Hall and Mike Wright. And then you got the Cube. And then you got Eric Metcalf. I mean,
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me come back to
point. That's a great.
Yeah.
If I may, it's a great point.
Yeah, BP.
Even going back to like 1993, I remember Metcalf had about 2 touchdown returns against the Steelers.
Oh yeah.
And it was a snowy day. You guys
remember
October,
that? That's right.
But it was like weird snowy day in October around and the point is, in the elements here, you need some great kick returners, punt returners, and the Browns haven't had that recently. We're missing that element with the punt return.
A really good point.
And I've said for years they don't have an electric punt returner, but they should, because that's a game changer. I'm sure the Ravens have one and the Steelers have one. The good teams have them. That's something we've lacked for years. Now Josh Cribbs was the ultimate. I mean, he was the best player on the team for about 5 years. He really, which is pretty sad. That's how bad we were.
That is pretty sad.
No, it was. I remember going to a game where he was like opening day. Everybody was saying, "I hope Cribbs returns a touchdown," or that was our best hope. Like this is around 2015 or so, 2014, 2012.
Yes.
It's pretty sad though, but I think the Browns are missing that element. Maybe that's the kind of guy, maybe that's the kind of guy they try to draft as an electric punt returner. That would be.
Who do they have now though? Who's the kid now?
Hakeem Grant.
Yeah.
Hakeem Grant.
Yep.
He's already got 6 returns for touchdowns with other teams.
Unfortunately, I think he tore his Achilles or his ACL last year.
Yeah.
So you don't know how
but he's healthy now and redid his contract. He's got some guarantees. So he's pretty much going to make the roster.
Yeah.
We'll see. Yeah. So let's return to our trivia question, because I think you probably have some answers to this. The question was,
I know one right off the bat.
Who did Art Modell trade away back in the day that became future All Pros? There were 3 names that our Village Elliott had given us on the trivia. Hasn't been able to join us tonight, but who were those 3 All Pros? Steve, you want to give us one?
Paul Warfield.
Mm-hmm. That's one.
I mean, come on.
Really,
pro. He's a pro. He's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, it's definitely.
When you say Modell, what era are you talking about? Like from what year?
The early. I'm sorry. Yeah, the early days. So like that period that Paul Warfield played for the Browns. Trying to go back and
Well, that was the 60s. The 60s.
it was the late 60s?
Yeah, because Warfield was on the Miami Dolphins 1972 Super Bowl team.
I think that's the era that Elliott was talking about, because he was discussing behind the scenes about how, Art Modell, why a lot of fans, especially us older Browns fans, object so much, not, for a variety of reasons with Modell, and, how everything went down with him and Paul Brown, originally. So any guesses on the other two that Elliott was suggesting for All Pros that came out? Anybody?
I have no idea. I know that basically Jim Brown, the greatest running back of all time, left the Browns because of.
I had a Clinton McNeil.
Ooh.
A Clinton McNeil. Anybody know him?
No.
Okay, I'm going to do my research for this week, and I'll have more info on our next Fanatical Elfz show. And the other player was Ron Johnson. Anybody heard? No?
No.
I do remember
Bueller?
Ron Johnson.
I will do some more research on that.
I didn't know he was all pro.
See, this is where,
There was like 8 teams back then, so anybody,
Right.
You could have been all pro.
I'm gonna do some research this week, and we're gonna discuss this with Elliott next week. Obviously, Elliott might be back on our show next week, so we can ask him then. So the next we'll run into the next question here about, did you know of something that we don't know about the Browns? We started this last week. We were talking about different things about the Browns and Browns history. So did you know what's something that we do not know about the Browns? Steve, you want to go, or Brad or BP, you want to go? Who wants to go first?
I can give you guys a quick trivia question if you want. Just
sure.
Quick.
Okay.
Sure.
Name a current Browns defensive starter that, highly touted player that has 0 career interceptions.
Greg Newsome.
That's correct.
Ah.
So,
Now-
here's a guy. He's only played 2 years, 2
Okay.
seasons, but he was a first-round
So-
pick. You would think he'd have 1 interception by now. After,
But he didn't. And BP, let me ask you this, since we're talking about Greg Newsome, because he doesn't, and he didn't really have a lot when he was at Northwestern. But this news came out this week, and that he tried to downplay, I think, when he came to the media day, about him wanting a trade, and he changed agents, and he's trying to say he didn't want a trade. But there's some insiders that follow the Browns too, social media outlets and whatnot, who are saying that he indeed did want to be traded, and that they're trying to spin it. So where do you, he's a young kid. He's coming out of, school. He hasn't been here that long, but I find it an interesting story that you've got two different stories going on right now.
I could probably answer that for you.
Contract.
I have a feeling the former agent didn't like to be fired. So he's going to stir the pot a little bit by talking to Mike Florio, because Mike Florio that's where he gets all his information from, agents.
Yes.
And he told Mike Florio, well, I tried to get him traded and I couldn't, so he fired me. So, because these guys, you can look up and see who his former agent was.
Yeah.
They don't want to lose their 3-4%. So if other players say, well, wow, man, that guy that Greg Newsome had, and he went over to Drew Rosenhaus, but the other guy
who he went over to,
wouldn't do what he told him, so I'm not going to let him represent me. So it's saving face while also putting. I guarantee you that's what happens. It's going to be a little bit of a. It's
interesting to me though that he would request the trade. He's a young player. He's only been with the team 2 years, BP.
Yeah.
Right. It is. You wonder what's going on behind the scenes. There's always something going on behind.
If you look at the statement, he didn't say he asked for a trade. The statement was he would like to be traded.
Okay.
Well,
I would like to be a millionaire, but that ain't happening anytime soon.
To be honest, I think he doesn't remember. MJ Emerson was I thought it was a hell of a rookie this past season.
Oh, it really was. And
at cornerback, and he was a 3rd round pick. I think he was, if you look at the snaps I think he was playing more than Greg Newsome. and he was getting, I think, more accolades from during the game. I think he was
And
a
Newsom's
better
had
player.
He's had some issues, with concussions and
Martin
whatnot.
Emerson?
Great. Yeah, no,
Or Newsom?
Newsom.
No, Newsom.
Right.
Newsom.
I mean, I
He's
think
had a
Martin
concussion.
Emerson so far is a better player than Greg Newsom. I think we probably could agree on that. And I think the Browns want to put Newsom in the slot, like as a almost like a slot cornerback.
Yep.
And so I don't think he likes that role. That I've seen Greg Newsom
you make
in
less money.
Cavs. I've seen him, up close and personal. He's a pretty slight guy.
Yeah.
And, he likes going to the Cleveland Cavs game. So, and he
Yeah.
sees these guys making huge money, like Darius Garland, like $35 million a year.
Yeah.
And he's probably seeing the writing on the wall where, like, if he's like a third, the third cornerback, he's not, with no interceptions, he's not going to be making much money down the road.
Good point. That's a good point.
Yeah. So I think he doesn't love his role here with Cleveland. And
Well, we don't know what his role is going to be because we have a new defensive coordinator.
True. Steve, what's your did you have a did you know?
Sure.
Okay.
Everybody wonders about the Elf since this is the Fanatical Elfz Network.
Yeah.
1929, the Atlas Brewing Company in Detroit came out with a product called the Brownie Cream Root Beer. Now, to advertise this in markets other than Detroit, they put a big sign on a building in Massillon, Ohio.
Massillon, yep.
Thus, with a brownie on it. Thus, the brownie.
That's how. Okay.
That's how it
I
came
find
to
it
be.
so contrary because we've talked about this in other shows. And if you do your research, if you go back and look at the history, like the actual brownie and what an elf is, are actually like opposites in like folklore.
Yes.
And so
they
so when the Browns took the elf logo when in the 40s actually, and they actually created it, there was conversation and stories in the paper back then about this same topic, that a brownie and an elf are like not the same. But we've kind of warped into this sort of elf and Brownie the Elf. So it's a play on words. That's interesting. That's cool. 1929.
Back when the team came back, and a lot of Browns backers clubs, because I know this, I was president of the Middle Tennessee Browns backers. Yeah. A lot of clubs put the brownie somewhere on their T-shirt. And the reason they did it, because Art Modell hated the brownie.
Yes.
And it was their way of saying, hey, Art, we love the brownie, because he hated it. He wanted to get rid of it. He tried his best to get rid of it. Yeah.
BP, what did you want to? Did you have something to share? I saw you. Yep. Oh, did you have something to say, BP? I thought we cut you off.
No, you didn't.
Okay, let's go to our. I wanted to do our giveaway. We've been really thankful to all the fans and the people that have been supporting our new network here, the Fanatical Elfz Network. So thank you. And we've been growing our product, and we're on all the platforms from Apple to Spotify to iTunes or TuneIn. And so thank you for following us on Twitter. We have a Facebook page, the Fanatical Elfz. We've got an Instagram page now at the Elfz Network. We've got a YouTube channel, the Elfz Network. So please try to find us and type in Elfz Network, and we're going to be there. And so we're excited about that. But every week we've been giving away gifts. And so this week we've got our elf decal. I don't know, Steve, do you have one there? There you go. And we'll be mailing this, if you're watching this on YouTube, to the lucky winner this week. We've given away a pullover. We've given away a T-shirt. We've given away a ball cap. I think and we've got several more things coming up. So please continue to follow, retweet our tweets, follow our podcast. So we have our winner this week, and our winner is Little Bit of Ohio.
Oh, nice.
They follow. That's their tagline. Little Bit of Ohio. Just a little bit about this. He is. They live in Texas.
Oh,
Little
cool.
Bit Ohio does, but he's a diehard Cleveland Browns fan for life, and only positive thoughts. So thank you, Little Bit of Ohio, for following us and for retweeting our tweets. And we will be getting that Fanatical Elf out to you through the mail. I'll be contacting you.
Not this one. This one's
not
mine,
that one.
A little bit. This one's mine. It's going on my car right before the season starts.
Right. And I think, by the way, and I know, Steve, I didn't mention this to you, but I know BP brought up a good thing to do as far as, we're going to be coming up with the draft coming very soon. It's a week from tonight. And so in addition to the shows that we've been providing you, some of us will be coming on and giving people some insight on what's been rolling out. Now, the Browns don't have a pick until day 2, right? At pick 74. Yep. So
74 and 98.
We'll be analyzing that, but I think BPU came up with a great idea too about maybe having some of the fans, guess who the Browns are going to get it at picks, what they're going to do at pick 74, and then we'll put all those contestants. If we'll put that out on our websites and our Twitter pages, so make sure that you follow along on that. Okay, so final thoughts. Oh my gosh, we have in the backstage here. It looks like Elliot is joining us, but I think we're wrapping things up. So, final thoughts before we get going out of here of our show tonight.
I'll go first. I'm looking forward to the draft next week. It's unfortunate we don't have a first round pick, but I'll still take my chances with Deshaun Watson. Hopefully, he performs better this year and gets us to the playoffs. That's kind of why we brought him here and gave him a ton of money.
Oh yeah.
Take it again. Like I said, if 70 Brown should take an edge rush. It's the most part of the team. They have one edge rusher, a guy from Texas. I can't pronounce his name. The Houston Texans.
Right.
Okonwu.
Yeah, double O.
Okoronquo.
Yeah. Maybe the Browns
Okoronquo.
Exactly. Maybe the Browns can move up from pick 74 and get one of these. When we've talked about these in previous shows, one of these high, 50-year in the draft type of edge rusher from either Auburn or Notre Dame or,
right.
And we'll see how it goes for the Browns.
Yes. Thanks, BP. Steve, final thoughts?
I'll be putting together my draft mockery 3.0 tomorrow. I've got the players. I don't do trades, and I'm going to do a trade, my last one, the one before the draft starts. I kind of paid attention to the guardrails this time.
Okay.
6 of the 8 follow both the age guardrail and the relative athletic score, which teams use, RAS.
Okay. Yeah.
And the other 2 follow the age guard line. So I'm sticking to the guardrails that Andrew Berry and the Browns use. So this will be interesting. What I'm really, really interested in seeing is what they do with pick 140 and 142, that close together. I might do a blog about that next week prior to the draft.
Well,
on
guys,
dogpoundsouth.net.
Dogpoundsouth.net. And BP's also he's on the Cavs affiliate too, so watch him for that. I know that we're in the heart of the playoffs for the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yeah, if I may, the name of that's also part of the Fan First Sports Network, and it's called, the name of that Twitter site is That's Rather Cavalier. So
I like that.
That's Rather Cavalier. We've got over 2,500 views for the last couple of shows we've done.
Sure.
Of course, it's helped that Cleveland Sports Talk is retweeting our shows on YouTube.
That's right.
They've got 92,000 followers, so they're helping push us through the system, so to speak. But
that's where you're going to.
I'd like to thank Zach Sheffron for his help, because he's been very helpful to all of us from Cleveland Sports Talk. So if he's made it through this 45-minute show, thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
That's where you'll find my draft. My next mock draft is clevelandsportstalk.com. Hopefully it'll be like Saturday.
Guys, thank you for being part of this Fanatical Elves show, episode 3. It sure was a lot of fun. Thank you for your expertise. And again, we are the Fanatical Elfz Network. Thanks for following us on Fans First Sports Network. Watch for the next giveaways. We've got the draft just a week away, so come on back and stay tuned to us. And we'll be sending that little elf out to a little bit of Ohio. Everybody, take care. Thank you for being part of the Fanatical Elfz show tonight. Bye.
Rock and roll.